Hi people, how you doing? I hope you're having a fantastic damn day. Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be talking about how to start off a realistic Barcelona career mode. Of course, I'll be giving you a few transfer ideas, who you should look to sell, who you should look to try and bring in. Of course, there will be a lot of players on expiring deals as well as a few young players, but we'll talk about that. We'll discuss it. You guys can let me know down below who Barcelona are currently linked with. I've obviously done my research, but who might be a good signing for them to potentially make, who they might need to get rid of in the team, as well as where Barcelona are currently playing. Obviously, their stadium is under construction, and also what stadiums in the game best suit their new stadium, as well as the reconstructed Camp Nou. We'll talk about that as well. And then I'll also be talking about how you can replicate the realistic debt situation, how you can try and, ease that. Of course, they are currently in a $1 billion+ debt, and obviously that does make things a bit more interesting for the transfers. Now, with any career mode that you're looking to have a realistic approach with, of course, Xavi, he likes to play this tiki-taka vertical style football. So I've already gone ahead and made the 4-3-3 Barcelona tactics in the game FC24. If you haven't seen them, I will link them for you at the end of this video. Go check them out. Let me know what you think of them as well. But yes, so obviously we've replicated them already, and that goes a long way with replicating a realistic career mode. Now onto the squad. Of course, it isn't the biggest squad in terms of the most senior football players. I mean, there are 42 players in and around this team, but you could probably say that around, 20 of them are actual first teamers, whereas the rest are more so 16 to 20-year-olds that haven't really got that experience under their belt. So we'll start off with the goalkeepers. Of course, we've got Ter Stegen, a fantastic player, one that I would not look to sell. I know he's got a lot of money and you're trying to get rid of the debt and whatnot, but I would not look to try and sell him. Of course, he is currently wearing the armband. He is I think Sergio Roberto is the actual club captain, if I'm not mistaken, with the likes of Ter Stegen wearing the armband more times than not when Roberto is not on the field. So I would look to keep him, build around him as well. Of course, he is 31, he's still in the prime of his career. Of course, goalkeepers have a much longer prime, so he is in the prime of his career as well. Of course, the German #1 with Manuel Neuer obviously dropping to the bench. And then we've got 3 or 4 other goalkeepers here that are okay. I wouldn't look to try and get rid of them or bring any of anyone of note in to try and replace them. I think that's just delegating funds in the wrong areas of the pitch. One area where I will say you probably need to look at is your left back department. Of course, you have the likes of Marcos Alonso and Balde in this area. Of course, I've put Marcos Alonso on the transfer list. I think Barcelona will look to try and get rid of him. Signing him on a free from Chelsea, of course, a few seasons ago. He's done a fairly decent job. I don't think he's been outstanding. But again, try and sell him. He's in the last few months of his contract. Get some money in for him. Try and, build that transfer budget up as much as you can. And then, of course, I would not look to sell this man either. Alejandro Balde, of course, he's 19 years of age, can play left back or right back or even left midfielder if required. And I think he's got a real face as well. So try and build this defense around him as well. Onto your centre-back department now. We've got Martinez, recently signed on a free from Athletic Bilbao. And of course, Christensen also signed on a free from Chelsea. So as you can see here, there's quite a distinct transfer strategy with this side. Of course, trying to get some of the best players in the world to come in on free transfers. Obviously, that does shorten the amounts of money that you pay out for these players. But again, if they don't work out, you can look to try and sell them on. Of course, I would say Christensen has been quite a success for Barcelona in his time there. Of course, he's only been there for 2 years, but they've won La Liga. He's done fairly well when he's played, and of course Martinez as well has been not too bad. A player like Langley now, of course, on loan at Aston Villa. When he does come back, look to try and get rid of him, sell him for as much as you possibly can. Koundé, now this is a strange one because I personally think that he's a right back, but he has come out and he said, I like playing centre back. I know he is somewhat undersized for a centre back area. I think he's 5'11", but again, I don't discriminate on height because my team has Lisandro Martinez and I think he is a world-class centre-back. But nonetheless, I would probably convert Koundé into a right-back. Now, this does take a bit of time. It takes over 100+ weeks, but if you bring in the right coaching systems and the right star-leveled coaches, I think that'll obviously decrease the time, and he can become a right back a lot faster. Of course, you have the likes of, like I said, Martinez, Christensen, Araujo. So you have all these good quality centre backs for just 2 areas. So you need to try and shorten that, try and get as much quality into your team as possible. Of course, you are going to be looking to try and compete for the La Liga title, the Champions League, the Copa del Rey. So you need to fit as much of the good quality players that you have in your team into your system. And I think Koundé does fit that right back role quite well. And then, of course, you've got a few other younger players here. out on loan, loaned in from LA Galaxy, no, LAFC, sorry, my bad. And then, like, again, like a player like this, right? You should try and loan him out with an option to buy and try and, like, recoup as much money as possible. Of course, he is 18 years old. He's not very old at all. He might have a massive potential. So if you do loan him out for 2 seasons or so, and he grows, bring him back in season number 3. Maybe he can add to your squad. Maybe you can add to the depth of the squad. Moving on, though, to your right back area. Now, we do have João Cancelo as well as Roberto. Now, Roberto, in the final 12 months of his deal, we will talk about the expiring contracts and how he can replicate a realistic approach with it. But I would look to try and keep him as well. Of course, he can play in the midfield when required. And then we've got João Cancelo. Now, I will probably say, of course, he's right-footed. But if you do sell the likes of Marcos Alonso, convert Cancelo into that left back. It doesn't take that long. And then obviously with the likes of Koundé shifting to the right back area, you would have a more versatile unit at the back. So that is just something that I would personally do. And we have seen the likes of Xavi play Cancelo as that left back when he has been fit and available. Of course, I would look to try and loan these guys out. And then onto your midfield. Of course, you've got the likes of Oriol Romeo. So apparently, now I'm not sure if there's much, gravity to these rumors, but apparently they signed him for like 3 million from Girona. I don't think he's been that bad, but of course he doesn't ooze the Barcelona type quality that Barcelona are looking for. So they are looking to try and sell him either back to Girona or to another club in Spain, and they are going to look to try and sell him for a slightly higher fee than what they obviously paid for. And this is the transfer strategy that they're trying to implement. Sign a player for X amount and try and sell him for double the value, or try and sign him on a free and then sell him for a value of X amounts. So I've added him to the transfer list. Of course, it is season 1. He has only just signed for them, so it will be very difficult. So maybe in the January window, or maybe even trying to loan him out with an option to buy would be best. But again, I've put him on the transfer list because I think there might be some traction to those rumors. Of course, you've got, again, a few other young players in and around here. I would look to loan them out. And then moving on into your central midfield areas, you've got 4 really good players for 2 positions. Now, what I would do personally is I like Frankie de Jong as the holding midfielder. So I would convert him into that holding midfielder role. Of course, it also takes a few weeks. I think it's also around like 50 to 100 weeks. I'm sorry, it's a very broad scale. But again, if you bring in the right coaches, they can get him to that level a lot faster. And then, of course, that means you'd have the likes of Gundogan, Pedri, and Gavi all rotating in those 2 positions higher up the field. And all of them obviously are very talented and very good. Of course, Gavi can play as a left winger, so if you do sell one of your forward line players, you can shift Gavi slightly higher up the field as well. And then again, Fermin, I know he has been a breakout youngster this season for them, so maybe not loaning him out, maybe continuing with him, converting him into a winger potentially, and then trying to have him grow in the side. But again, for me, I just think with FC24, moving slightly further away from the realistic side of things, if you loan out these young players and they get game time and they grow a lot fast, they hit their potentials a lot fast. So I think that's also something that you are going to try and do. And then again, if he doesn't fit your system later on down the line, you can look to sell them for massive amounts of money. And of course, it is pure profits when it comes to financial fair play when you sell your young players. So all of these players are from the Barcelona Youth Academy, La Masia. So you can definitely look to try and recoup a lot of money from selling players like this. Although, if you are a Barcelona fan and these players mean a lot to you, I would not sell them. I know Man United prospects that come through the Youth Academy, they are always near and dear to the fans. So it's always up to you. But again, I would look to try and loan these kids out. As for your forward line, now, of course, you've got the likes of Ferran Torres, who has been fairly decent since coming in. He's had a slight mixed bag of results. But again, I would look to try and keep him. Of course, he is only 23 years of age. He is Spanish, of course. Wearing the number 7 shirt. And then Rafinha. Now, this is a man that has been linked with moves all over the place. Of course, signing last season, helping them win La Liga last season. He has had a few injury issues. And I think Barcelona signed him for around 50 million, 60 million, somewhere there. That was when they were pulling all their financial levers. But now they're kind of stuck. They're kind of screwed because they can't do as much financially wise. So they are looking to try and sell Rafinha. Again, it's very similar to the Romeo deal, where there might be some traction to the rumors, or it might just be BS. We don't know for sure. I would personally keep him because Rafinha is one of my favorite players to watch, one of my favorite players to use in FC24 regardless. But on a realistic terms, or in realistic aspects of what you're trying to do with this Barcelona side, selling him for a big profit, maybe 80, 90, maybe even 100 million, depending on when you sell him. Of course, if you start off the season and you put him on the transfer list, which is what I've done right here, you'd get around 70 million or so. But if you play season 1 with him and he does well, he scores you a few goals, helps you win a few trophies, you can definitely sell him on for 100+ million. Of course, he will also grow, and that might be a more beneficial route to potentially try and take with Rafinha. And then we have the big man right here, Joao Felix. Of course, can play as a centre forward, striker, as well as a winger. He can be the backup to Lewandowski, or he can be the backup to a Ferran Torres, or even start in certain games. So what I would do is I'd convert him to a winger. I think that is his best position going forward. I don't think he fits the striker type mold. I think if he's playing in a front two system or as an inside forward, maybe, definitely. But for me, I would convert him into a left winger and then play him off of the left-hand side. Onto the likes of Robert Lewandowski. Obviously, 90 overall, 34 years of age. He is going to decline very, very soon, if not in the first season, definitely in season number 2. I would look to keep him, continue to use him, have the youth players in and around him, try and learn off of him, grow. I think it's a very realistic aspect and prospect to try and have a very experienced superstar nurturing the young talent in and around him. I mean, and he also helps the likes of Joao Felix, so it is what it is. And also, I will say this, obviously he's on loan, Joao Felix. He's on loan at Barcelona, so do Barca go ahead and spend, the 70 million that Atletico Madrid are asking for? I don't know. I don't think they would. I think they're going to loan him in for this season, and I think he's going back to Atletico Madrid next season. I don't think Barcelona can afford to pay that type of fee for a player that hasn't really produced as much. I mean, at first he was doing like wonders. Now he's kind of teetered out a bit. He's not doing the things that he was supposed to be doing. So again, I think it's going to be a one-season hit for the likes of Joao Felix, and I think he's going back to Atletico Madrid, just like with the likes of Cancelo, 80 million release clause or something like that in the deal to try and buy him. And I don't think Barcelona have that type of money. They are in a lot of debt. Now, moving on to the youth academy side of things. Of course, this is a very, very, very important aspect of your realistic career mode. Of course, Barcelona have always done very well in sweeping up as much young talent, bringing them into La Masia, growing them, nurturing them, and then potentially having them start for Barcelona, have them in the squad, or even sell them on for big amounts of money. And like I said, on a realistic side of things, FFP, if you sell a youth player, it goes straight into the green column of pure profit. So you want to try and do this as best as possible. So for the 3 scouts, I just signed whoever was the best and available. Of course, it goes hand in hand with Barcelona's insane good scouting system. So I've set it up in Morocco, Uruguay, and Spain. Now, Spain, obviously, you are a Spanish club. You need to try and sweep up the homegrown talents. Uruguay, because they have, over the last few years, gotten some good young talented players from that area of the world. And then finally, Morocco, again, they've also gotten some good young talents from Morocco of late. Talking about the budgets, this team is in massive, massive amounts of debt. You start off with around 65 million euros to spend. Now, what I will say is, if you want to make this realistic, don't spend 165 million euros. If you want to just have a good free-for-all, buy players who you want, that's fine, that's up to you. But if you want to be realistic, you want to pay off your billion-plus debt, what I would say you do is, you spend 50 million and you keep it to a tight 50 million. That means you need to be doing some crazy deals, flipping players, selling them for huge amounts, then reinvesting that money, trying to pay off the debt that Barcelona find themselves in. So you start off with 165 million. Right now, I've bought 2 scouts, so therefore it's 160 million. Invest in that area of your team. Make sure that they have the best of the best. That way you can pay off your debts a lot faster. Because if you sign and find these young talents for low amounts of money, you can sell them for huge amounts of money and then, again, pay off your debts a lot faster. So again, if you can save around 100 to 150 million per season, within 5 to 6 seasons, you would have paid off your debt, and then you would be able to go and sign all the superstars and stuff that you would want. What I will also say is, looking at the free agent market is going to be essential for your team going forward. Speaking of transfers, obviously free agents will be included as well, but some players who they have been linked with in the past and will potentially be linked with in the future, one being Ivan Fresneda. Of course, he ended up going to Sporting, so he's not available in season number 1. Normally, he does have a release clause in his contract, which we will also talk about. It's very, very important that in Spain, players have release clauses. It's like a law or something like that that you have to do. So we'll talk about that with the squad later on. But He was linked with a move to Barcelona. I don't think he will be available in the first season, but definitely if you haven't found a right back to replace the likes of Cancelo, or maybe even Kunde if you do tend to sell him, the likes of Fresneda is a very realistic prospect, as well as the likes of Vanderson. He can be bought immediately for around 20 million, 30 million, somewhere there. But again, that does eat a lot of your transfer budget of only 50 million euros. So you need to be very smart with your dealings, your wheelings, and how you can look to try and work things out. I will say this. Don't cancel your loans of Cancelo or Joao Felix. Use them for season number 1. Make sure that they don't go back to their respective clubs, because those are essentially free hit players that you can use to try and improve your team at a later stage. Onto your centre-back area now, we've got the likes of Lenny Yoro. I've said this for countless previous videos like this. He's linked with any and every club under the sun. And I will also say this. Okay, it doesn't actually show you, but he is available for like 2 to 3 million, and he has a massive, massive potential. Now, this is a type of player that I would implore you to go and sign. Try and grow him as much as possible. Keep him in your team if you want, or potentially in 2 or 3 seasons when he's hit that high 70, high 80 overall, sell him on. Make sure that you can recoup as a lot of money for him and then invest it back into your team. As for the likes of Kivior, of course, he is also linked with a whole range of different clubs, linked with a move to Barcelona, potentially on loan. Now, it will be very hard to loan him in the game, obviously. But again, he is linked with a move to Barcelona from Arsenal. I think you can get him for around 15 million or so, around there. He doesn't have the craziest overall to warrant such a high and expensive wage or a transfer fee, so I do think he is available. As for the likes of Juan Miranda, now, he is in his final 12 months of his deal, so you can get him for a cut price. Now, normally you pay around 25 million for him if you had quite a few years on his deal. I think he is like a 78 overall, 79 overall, somewhere there. You can get him for around 15 million. Now, that is a smart deal. He can look to try and back up or even start ahead of Balde when you're trying to grow the young superstar in the making. I think it's a smart move to go for a player like this. Of course, he is Spanish. He's 6'1", left-footed. He's got a good few play styles, block and whipped pass, so he can definitely add to the offensive style and system that Xavi and Barcelona are trying to run. As for the next left back, now this is a man that I don't know anything about. He has a high work rate, attacking work rate, I will say. A medium defensive work rate, left-footed, of course, 2-star skill moves and weak foot respectively. He is from Denmark, so he can fit into the Christensen system, where obviously he signed a few Danish players. And then, of course, he is a left back. So I don't know what his potential is. I don't know what his overall is, but I have seen that he has been linked in the past with a move to Barcelona potentially. And then we'll move on into our midfield. Now, I did say Romeo potentially leaving, going out on loan or being sold. That means that it would only essentially be Frankie de Jong that can actually play the DM role. So why not go ahead and try and sign a player like Sofian Amrabat? Now, he is on loan at Manchester United in real life. And in season number 1, he'll probably stay there. But for season number 2, potentially, he could be a very cheap signing because he would then be in the final 12 months of his deal, which would mean you can probably get him for around 10 to 15 million pounds, euros, which is, again, a very good, smart, savvy deal. Another smart, savvy deal that you could look to do, or 2 at least, is Jorginho and Guido Rodriguez. Now, both of them are in the final years of the final 12 months of their deals, 31 and 28 respectively, both 83 overall. And both of these players can definitely elevate the floor of this Barcelona midfield, the team as a whole. I would personally go for Guido Rodriguez. Of course, he is slightly younger. He is obviously the same overall, but the tiki-taka play style is why I would go for him. I think he would suit the system a lot more. He's got the anticipated slide tackle and bruiser play styles as well. I think he would add a lot of muscle, a lot of backbone to the system going forward. And I think he would just be a hand-in-glove type fit. Another player who I think could also be very, very good, I mentioned him yesterday for the likes of Borussia Dortmund. How you can start a realistic career mode with them. But Arthur Vermeeren, again, 18 years old, Belgium, potentially a Belgium international, I'm not too sure. Weak foot is set to a 4-star and skill moves set to 3. He has got the high work rates of attacking and defensively wise. I think he could also bring him in at a very cheap price, grow him potentially, keep him in the side if you would like, or maybe even at a later stage sell him on. This is obviously if you don't want to have the likes of Frankie de Jong as your out-and-out number 6. If you want to play Frankie de Jong as your number 8, this man as your future number 6 would be absolutely impressive. And then obviously we've got just a kind of a throwaway one. When I saw his name linked with a move to Barcelona, I was like, whoa. Playing in the championship in England, has not been very good the last 3 or 4 years, or the last 3 years to say the least. But a link with a move away to potentially Barcelona, and I don't see why he wouldn't take it. I mean, he is also in the last 12 months of his deal, 26 years of age. Maybe he could suit the system. Obviously, he also adds a lot of backbone, a lot of bite in the midfield. He does have the play style of intercept, so he is very aware on the defensive side of things. Of course, the defensive work rate is set to high. 6 foot, weak foot set to a 4-star. So again, I think he could add quite a bit to this side. And I think, again, you can get him for around 20 million euros or so, which would go hand in hand with the system and the style of the transfers that they're looking to try and get into the club. Now, this one is very interesting. Now, I'm a massive fan of Jan Couto. If you haven't seen the West Brom Career Mode, go check it out. He is a superstar. But could he be a Dani Alves regen? Of course, he can play as a right midfielder, a right back, and a right wing back. Now, what I would do if I was Barcelona, obviously he's currently on loan at Girona for season number 1, but for season number 2, you go to Man City, you offer them 10 million, they'll accept it because he isn't the highest of overalls. I think he's like a 76, 77, somewhere there. You bring him in, you convert him into a right back, and then he can be your right back for the future, bombing on. Maybe the likes of Koundé can then shift back into the centre back role. You could have 2 attacking fullbacks on either flank. I think Jan Couto could definitely be a Dani Alves regen. And then onto a Chelsea potential youngster signing. Again, play style suits the team. Slide tackle, flair player, and then he said fair player. Flair player, and then of course tiki-taka. Can play as a DM or as a number 8. I think he would work out quite well. Currently on loan at Nottingham Forest to begin things off with, so not available for season number 1, but definitely for season number 2 for a very low fee as well. And then a former Barcelona player, also final 12 months of his deal. Thiago, 32 years of age, can bring him in to try and provide a bit of experience. They haven't been afraid to bring in slightly older players. Of course, they spent 50 million euros on Robert Lewandowski a few seasons ago, so they wouldn't hesitate to bring a player like this in, especially if he is in the final 12 months of his deal, or he does eventually and inevitably hit free agency. 83 overall, he's got some great play styles: Trivela, first touch flair, technical, slide tackle, tiki-taka, and then of course ping pass. You could potentially bring in Thiago and have a midfield or even a double pivot of the likes of Thiago and Frenkie de Jong. That would be incredible. The technical ability of those two on the ball is up there with the absolute best. And then moving on into your forward line, we've got Paulo Dybala. Now, I know he does have, in real life, a release clause of like 15 to 20 million euros or pounds, something there. Obviously, in the game, he's an 86, meaning his price would be astronomical. I think it's around 70 million. Yeah, there we go. 76.8 mil to 96 million. So again, out of your price range, but again, he has been linked with a move to Barcelona. I would try and keep him on the transfer list. If he does hit free agency or does hit the final 12 months of his deal, look to try and maybe bring him in then. But again, it is a slightly stretched transfer target that you could look to try and target in the future. And then the last one is Anthony Martial. Also, final 12 months of his deal. More times than not, I have noticed in career mode, he does hit free agency. So sign him as a free agent for season number 2, costing you next to nothing. Offer him a decent wage. You can get him for around 90,000 to 70,000 euros a week. That does suit the plan, the transfer strategy, and how you can look to try and bring in a backup striker for Lewandowski. He's got finesse shot, chip shot, as well as technical dribbler, so he is very good. He's only 27, by the way. He has had his injury issues in the past, but I think he is one of the best players at Manchester United in FC24. So I don't think you can go wrong with a player like Anthony Martial in your side. Now, moving on to the contract situation. So if you do have expiring contracts, I would just like to show you an example of how you should look to try and handle them. So we've got Sergio Roberto here. He's on around 125,000 euros a week. I've set him to a rotational squad player, so he's not going to argue with you about getting minutes here and there. Obviously, he is 31, so you want to try and extend him a fair amount to try and add to his value if you are going to look to eventually try and sell him at a later stage. He doesn't want an extension of 2 years. Well, you're going to get at least a further year in the deal, which is great for him. The release clause he doesn't want. Now, this is the unrealistic side of it, because in Spain, they all need release clauses. Now, I will also show you a trick. If you add a release clause of 100 million, and obviously that is far over the value of what Sergio Roberto is, they will never decline the contract. They'll just readjust it to the actual release clause that they will accept, the highest release clause that they will accept. And therefore, you can go ahead and accept that. So if a club comes in and pays almost 32 million euros for Sergio Roberto, you can shake their hand and say, thank you very much, I'll drive them to the airport. Because 32 million euros for a player like Sergio Roberto, who, don't get me wrong, has been a very good servant to the club over the amount of time that he's been there, is a lot of money. So definitely take the money and run. Okay, now for the wage system, right? I don't know if it will actually work with this, but normally what you do is you give them a wage that's slightly less. Obviously, you are trying to bring down the wage bill and the wage structure. It's a very realistic move to try and do. So you offer him around 25,000 less. He's going to obviously counter that and ask for $1 million flipping no. But he will take less money, which is good. Still less money, 5,000, that's what you're saving. So essentially you are saving some money on the wage structure and the wage bill. It's little things like this that can also add to the realism factor of what Barcelona and a realistic career mode with them can potentially do for you. Now guys, finally, before we end off the episode, of course, Barcelona are currently renovating Camp Nou. Of course, it's going to be renamed the Spotify Camp Nou Stadium, and it reopens in November of 2024. But currently, they aren't playing there, obviously. It's under construction. They are currently playing at the Estadi Olympic Stadium in Barcelona. That is, I think, their training ground or their secondary ground or something like that. Now, obviously, it doesn't exist in the game, just like Camp Nou doesn't exist in the game. So, what I would do is, for season number 1, okay, and, well, if you would like, even halfway through season number 2, because essentially it's only November 2024, what you would do is you would select the stadium, Al Jayed Stadium. I think that best replicates the best version of what the Estadi Olympic can look like. And then obviously you rename it. And then in November of 2024, that season, you would then revert back to the El Libertador, I think that's how you pronounce it, and obviously rename it the Spotify Camp Nou Stadium. And that's just a nice little factor of trying to implement a realistic style or a realistic career mode into your game. I think it's quite cool. It's quite a nice thing. I'm actually quite happy that Camp Nou isn't actually in the game, because you wouldn't be able to do this. I mean, when Real Madrid were renovating their stadium, you couldn't actually just switch stadiums. It was just the old Bernabeu. Whereas with this, at least you can like somewhat alter and try and incorporate a realistic aspect to your game. Just before we end off the episode, sorry, I actually forgot about this, but some of the scouting instructions that you can give to your scout to potentially find you some good young players to potentially buy. So for the first one, I've gone with any position, 16 to 23 years of age, of course, trying to get that young talent in the door. Contract situation should be 0 to 1 year, so in the final 12 months of their deal. And then, of course, the overall condition, I've gone with first team quality, first team prospect, and of course, a world-class prospect. Onto the right back situation now, of course, they are looking for a right back in that area. Any, doesn't really matter, needs to be a right back though. 20 to 28, and then the contract situation doesn't overly matter too much unless you are trying to save and pinch pennies where you can. A defensive midfielder though is also required, 20 to 26, 0 to 5 years on the contract, first team quality, and then of course first team prospect. That's where you would more or less try and find the likes of Famirin or somebody like that, of that type of mold. And then they're also looking for a right winger. Now this is more so if you do sell Rafinha, so you can be a right winger or a right midfielder. 20 to 28, 5 year, 0 to 5 years on the contract, doesn't really matter too much. First team quality, first team prospect, or potentially a world-class prospect. And as you can see, it is exactly the same for the right midfielder role. So yes, people, I hope you have enjoyed this. Please smash that like button down below. Subscribe if you are new. I know I've jumped around all over the place, but I think I've given you guys a fair few amounts of ideas to try and make your Barcelona career modes very realistic. If you have enjoyed this, please smash that like button. And until the next time, I hope you have a damn great day. I'm out!